3. Okay, class number 5 on the book of Shemuel. We're now going to read the story of Shemuel as a child growing up under the tutelage of Eli HaKohen. So you remember last week he was 2 years old. We got it. It's recording. Under the tutelage of Eli HaKohen, his mother Hannah brings him at the age of 2. He's 2 years old. Comes to Shiloh. And there is Eli HaKohen, there is the Mishkan, and now Shemuel is going to be serving Eli HaKohen, and that's the story. That's the beginning of the story. But here's the thing: woven into the story of Shemuel and his childhood is another subplot, and this subplot actually becomes the main plot for the next class, and that's going to be why was the city of Shiloh destroyed? Shiloh is where the Mishkan was. That's the Jewish temple was in the city of Shiloh. That was the holiest city. They still didn't discover Yerushalayim. They didn't know that Jerusalem was going to be holy, so they were in the city of Shiloh. Why was the city of Shiloh destroyed? And it was destroyed for the following reason. Because Eli, the Kohen Gadol, had 2 sons, and they were rotten religious leaders. They were terrible. We're going to read about what they did today. They were Kohanim. They were supposed to represent the Torah. They were supposed to represent everything that's beautiful about Judaism, and instead they represented the most rotten values. They were rotten people.
You can't trust all the Kohanim.
Well, certainly, in this case, you weren't able to trust them. And here's a question. So let's just make a reverse to understand this a little better. So you know Aharon, the brother of Moshe Rabbeinu, he was chosen already in Egypt. He was chosen in Egypt by Hashem. Hashem looks at Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, Moses is going to be the leader of the Jewish people. Hashem looks at Aharon. He says, Aharon, his brother, is going to be the Kohen of the Jewish people. Already in Egypt, this decision was made. Now, Aharon had 4 sons. 2, Nadav and Avihu, died. Okay? They died when they brought the sacrifice that they shouldn't have brought, right? They were burnt by the fire. 2 sons remained. One was Elazar, and the other was Itamar. The son of Elazar was the famous Pinechas. Pinechas was the guy who went with a sword and killed Zimri ben Salu and Kozbi Batsur, and you know that story. That's from this Perashat Pinechas, at the end of Perashat Balak. Okay, Pinechas becomes the Kohen Gadol. Now this is in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. They were in the desert. So you read about Pinechas. Where else do you read about Pinechas? Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Olam Haba. The Chumash finishes. You hear about Pinechas in the next book. The book of Yehoshua. He's still alive. And then you hear about Pinechas in the book of Shofetim. You hear about it at the end of the book of Shofetim. Hundreds of years later, the book of Shofetim says that the Jewish people were in the city of Bethel and they wanted to ask Hashem a question. And who do you go to if you want to ask Hashem a question? In those days, you had the Kohen Gadol. He had a breastplate with the beautiful jewels, the stones, the 12 stones, and the letters would light up. So they went to the Kohen Gadol. He was in the city of Bethel. Bethel is not so far from Shiloh, not far from where we are here. And who is the Kohen Gadol there? Pinechas. He's still alive. Pinechas is there. So it's like, 300-400 years old. Do the math. He was actually quite old. So he's the Kohen Gadol. Now Pinechas is the son of who? He's the son of Elazar. So what happened? The Kehuna is taken away from Pinechas. And I want to read to you, and I was trying to figure out, so why? Why was that? And it wasn't just taken away from Pinechas. Hashem moves the Kehuna, the priesthood, away from Elazar, and he moves it to the other brother of Aharon, Itamar. Well, obviously he's not alive, but I mean the descendants of Elazar. Eli HaKohen is a descendant of, not Elazar, he's a descendant of Itamar. And I don't have the book, it's in my office, okay, not a big deal. Eliyah Rabbah, Midrash Eliyah Rabbah, Perek Yod Aleph, for those of you who want to see the source, that's why sometimes I mention the sources. It says that Hashem took away the Kehuna. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't something that was done, no. Hashem took away the Kehuna from Pinechas. He took away the Kehuna from the sons of Elazar, and he intentionally moved it to Itamar, the sons of Itamar. Why? Because in those days, the level of behavior of the Jewish people was simply beneath any standard that's acceptable. It was simply terrible. The tribe of Binyamin, they engaged in a gang rape. They killed the victim, the woman, and then eventually this led to a civil war where they almost completely eradicated the tribe of Binyamin. It was a terrible time. There was a civil war. There was a lack of values. People didn't know the Torah. They didn't know anything. They were like the total, spiritually at a decadent level. So Hashem took away the kehuna from Pinchas, who was a great tzaddik. It was like Pinchas was like the highest level, but Hashem said, look what's happening. You failed. That's it. Enough. What, you're around for 300 years? Let somebody else, let the new generation take over. Let somebody else try the job instead of you, because this isn't working. So if you're a religious leader and people don't know Torah, the expression, the buck stops here. The buck stopped with Pinchas. And Hashem basically tells Pinchas, and I got this again, I'm not making this up. It's Eliyah Rabbah, Midrash Eliyah Rabbah. Hashem basically tells Pinchas, look, let's bring in some fresh blood. Let's bring in some new Kohanim. We're not going to bring in anybody from Elazar, the son of Aharon. We're going to bring somebody from Itamar, the son of Aharon. And who is that somebody? Itamar, the son of Aharon? Eli HaKohen, Shalom Aleichem. Thank you very much. Eli HaKohen is that somebody. You understand what's happening here? So Eli HaKohen becomes the Kohen Gadol, and the Kehuna of Eli lasts for exactly 72 years. 72 years. Elazar is pushed to the side, Itamar is brought in, Eli becomes Kohen Gadol, and for 72 years, that's the situation. Okay, so now you have some of the background, and now you understand the subplot. The subplot is, why was the household of Eli destroyed? Why was the city of Shiloh destroyed? Eli was demoted. He was Kohen for the Kehuna lasted for 72 years, and then they went back to the household of Elazar. That's the sub-story that's taking place in this main story of the book of Shemuel. So now you see where we are. I'd like to guide you and show you exactly where we are in the story.
Is this at the same time of the Philistine war?
Exactly correct. Yes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה בדברו. I'm sorry?
The plain one or the fancy one?
Save 2 slices for my son. He'll come. I ate already. I don't need. Okay. Regular, plain. Okay. All right. Let's read now in the book of Shemuel. We are in Perek Bet, Pasuk Yod Aleph. Okay. Here we go. We're starting. Vayelech Elkanah. So you remember last week, Hannah gave that beautiful prayer of thanksgiving to Hashem, right? We studied that tefillah. It was a beautiful tefillah, right? And this week now, that's it. Shemuel is in the Mishkan, and the pasuk says, "Vayelech Elkanah haramata al beto." Elkanah returns home, back to his house. He leaves Shiloh, the Hannah, and as far as Shemuel, the young child, Haya mesharet et Adonai et penei Eli HaKohen. The child decides, or not decides, rather the decision made by the mom, to leave the child in the presence of Eli HaKohen, and he is now serving God. He is now serving God. Mesharet. He becomes almost like I don't want to say servant in a derogatory fashion, but that's what he does. Now, first of all, I want to go back to the beginning of the pasuk. Who's missing in the pasuk? Let me read the pasuk again. Vayelech Elkanah haramata al beto. Elkanah goes back home. Shemuel stays. Who's missing in the pasuk? The Kohen Gadol is there. Hannah. Where's Hannah? Okay. This is my explanation, because I look and I look and I look, and everybody says, "Will Hannah return with her husband?" And I'm looking at the pasuk, and I'm not disagreeing, but the pasuk just says, "Vayelech Elkanah haramata al beto." It doesn't mention Hannah. Now, naturally, one would say that Hannah returned with her husband, and I believe that there's obviously truth to that. But why does it mention her? It should have said Vayelechu. Why does it say Vayelech Elkanah? It says Elkanah returned. Because I believe that Hannah, she has her 2-year-old baby there. I don't think she just left. I think she stayed there. She probably got a house nearby. The child would be with the mom. She would feed him, clothe him, whatever. You know, Eliyakim is not going to take care of the child. Who's going to take care of the child? The mom. So I think the mom, she kind of like relocated her residence in that area so she can take care of her child as he grows up. And that's why it says Vayelech Elkanah. It doesn't say Vatelech Hannah. Vayelech Elkanah. Makes sense, right? What mom's just going to leave her 2-year-old? If I have a wife, she has a 2-year-old baby and her husband, who's she going to go with? The 2-year-old baby. What are you going to do? It's a 2-year-old boy. She loves the baby to death. Honey, see you later. You know, go home, and I want to be with little Shemuel, and that's what happened. That's my explanation. And again, the pasuk says, and what was Shemuel doing? He was misharet. He was serving. You know, I want to tell you. I know we're used to this. We live in the Western educational system, and we believe that the Western way is the best way. I guess it's possible. It's possible that the Western educational system is the best. It's also possible that it's not. I'll give you an example. In Japan, students are obligated to do osoji. What's osoji? So it means that the students are actually obligated to clean up the school. Now, why do they do this? Okay, so in the Western educational system, there is this idea that we have to try to cram as much information down the skull of the child, as much as we can. And the more information we manage to cram into his skull, the better. Okay. And that's great. You know, by the way, I love the fact that my kids are getting a good education. They go to Flatbush, they go to Barkai. I seriously love it. I love it that my children are learning Torah. I love it that they're learning about the Constitution. They come home, they ask me questions. I consider that so important to be well educated. I really do. So don't take this wrong. But there's this emphasis on just, you know, downloading as much information into their brains. What there is not an emphasis on is values. And values you learn not just through teaching, oh, be good, be good, be good, be good. No. Values you learn through behavior. Okay, now when you teach kids to clean up after their messes and to clean up the school and to go to the bathrooms and to go to the kitchen and do all the cleaning, you're teaching them to respect the world around them. First of all, you teach them there's a world around them, and number two, you teach them to respect the world around them, right? That's part of the Japanese educational system. I'll give you an example of how educating a child is not just about cramming information, but it's about growing the child to become a good person. They also have in Japan where it's called Chiiki Seiso, which basically means that they not only clean the school, but 3 times a year they go to the neighborhood and they clean the neighborhood. Again, respect, right? Respect the world around me. It's so important. I teach them Flatbush, so a lot of times I see kids like leaving garbage behind the thing, and I tell them, "What are you doing? Who's gonna pick up that bagel that you left behind? You know, the crumbs. Who's gonna pick it up? Somebody's gonna pick it up. It's not gonna be here tomorrow morning. Pick it up. Clean up after yourself. Why should somebody else pick up your mess, right?" I try to emphasize it, but one person can have a limited effect because around you have different values. So that's important. Now, I want to tell you something else, as long as we're talking about the Western educational system, okay? And I'm telling this to you so you understand what I tell you about the Jewish educational system, which is different, okay? So bear with me, okay? We have, who knows where the modern educational system in the Western world started? Where did it all come from? Does anybody know? So I'll answer the question. It started with the Industrial Revolution in England. They started to have factories. The factories supplanted the farms. So basically until now people were working in farms, they were peasants, they were farming, they didn't have a schedule. Suddenly they have these farms, these factories with assembly lines. Everything is very orderly, everything follows a clock, right? And you have these straight lines and everybody has their place in the factory. And the classrooms, the schools that we have today are actually a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution. Because in the schools you have, the desk, everything is straight. You have the clock, you have the bells, just like you have the factory bells, you have the bells in the middle of the class. That's the system. Now, I'm not saying the system is not good, but, you think about a 6-year-old kid, a 6-year-old boy who wants to be outside playing, and, he has to sit there, for 6 long hours until the bell rings, and, you wonder, are you helping this kid? So I read some Sigmund Freud, and one thing I would tell you is that there's these struggles going on with the human personality. And, we talk about attention deficit disorder, ADD. So now, so many kids nowadays are diagnosed with ADD, right? And what do they do with the kid who's diagnosed with ADD? You drug them up with Ritalin. You give them Ritalin. Ritalin is the Western world's cure for attention deficit disorder. And from a psychological perspective, one can also say that the demands of the modern school system are so excessive that they produce this pathology. And the name of the pathology is attention deficit disorder. But here's the point. It's only a pathology if you define it as a pathology, meaning you say that a 6-year-old kid who cannot sit for 6 hours straight in a class is sick. Well, yeah, he's sick because you actually defined it as a sickness. So, it's not like, you have the square, scientific fact. You have the bacteria, virus, flu, whatever. That's a square. That's a scientific fact. So they're trying to say that ADD, attention deficit disorder, is this square. It's a fact. It's a pathology. Well, it's a pathology because you define it as such. And I would actually say that it's a socio-cultural construct. It's not a scientific fact. We just decided that 6-year-old kids or 7-year-old kids or 8-year-old kids should be able to sit down in a class and listen to hours and hours and hours of boring information that they want to hear nothing about, rather than being outside and playing. And if they can't do it, well, we drug them up with Ritalin, and Ritalin works really well. And Ritalin works really well because anybody who takes Ritalin, including an adult, if you're trying to focus on something and you take Ritalin, it's an amphetamine, and you'll be able to focus much better on the task at hand. It doesn't cure the child, it's just a drug. It's drugging up the child. So that's the Western approach to education. Just ram down information, and if the child is not capable of getting that information, then there's something wrong with him. And I just want to, I just want to say one thing. There was a scientist who did experiments with these with male rats, and basically what they did is they prevent the male rats, like the rough and tumble and play, and they put the rats in a situation where they deny them the ability to rough and tumble and play. And the name of the scientist was Yang Pangsef with a PH at the end, I think. And basically what he showed is that the prefrontal cortex of these rats didn't develop well, right? Now, interesting. Do you know what else prevented the rats from rough and tumble and play? When they gave them Ritalin. So, just think of that for a second. So this is what we have in the Western world. Force the kids to sit down, ram information down, but don't teach them values. And if they can't sit down, give them Ritalin. That's the solution. The Torah has a completely different approach. And Shlomo HaMelech speaks about it in the book of Mishleh. The book of Mishleh emphasizes values. It emphasizes that in order for a child to be able to learn Reshit Chokhmah, Yirat Adonai, you first have to have good values, an awareness of the world around you, an awareness of God, right? And only then, only when you develop these values, should you be able to acquire knowledge. So what was Yoshua bin Nun, the student of Moshe Rabbeinu? At first he was Mesharet Moshe. He was the person who assisted Moshe Rabbeinu in various tasks. That teaches you humility. That teaches you to respect the world around you. And then he was a student of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he became a fabulous student, right? So by the Jewish system, if you're incapable of showing humility, if you're incapable of exhibiting the proper values, they will not let you study. The teacher will not accept you. Meaning, not that we deny anybody in education, but rather it's the other way around. We're saying first learn the values, learn proper behavior, then we will ram and shove information down your brain. Okay, that's the proper order. That's what's happening to Shemuel. That's exactly what's happening to Shemuel. The education of Shemuel, and he becomes one of the greatest Nevi'im ever, is based upon the predicate that first we grow the child in the proper behavior. He becomes a Misharet of Ali. It's humbling, right? It's difficult, but it makes a character. It builds character. It builds a solid personality. Then he studies with Ali, and he becomes a Talmid of Ali. But you see the order? That's so important. I think eventually they're going to do this. I think as Am Yisrael develops in the state of Israel, we have a long way to go, but eventually we'll get there. I think one of the things they're going to do is they're going to incorporate this system of education. They're going to incorporate a system of education that says, let's first build kids who are good, who have good character, who respect the world around them, then we'll teach them, or in that order, and we'll have people like Shemuel Hanavi coming out. Okay, questions about that before I continue to the next section? Okay, good. Ubnei Eli bene Belial. In contrast to Shemuel, who was a wonderful neshama tehorah. We build this character as we did. We see the sons of Eli, the biological sons of Eli, they are a bunch of Belial literally means, the word Belial means a person with no yoke. Belial means Belial, it means a person who has no yoke. The Hachamim say, Balu Shem Shamayim Me'alehem. What does it mean, Balu Shem Shamayim Me'alehem? It means that originally they had some fear of God, but as they rose up, the fear of God dissipated and went away. And it went so far that they said, En Malchut Bashamayim. The children of Eli said, there is no kingdom from heaven. Meaning God is in the heaven, we believe in God, but He's not ruling us. So if you don't believe that there's a God ruling the affairs of man, who becomes God? They do. They become God, right? And that's why, by the way, you see a lot of times, like this tendency, especially nowadays, in many ways, it's been going on for decades, the same people who are anti-God, anti-values, they're also the people who want to turn the U.S. or other countries into dictatorships, right? I mean, they use the word freedom, all dictators. Nobody says, I want to be your dictator and I want you to be my slave. Everybody uses the rhetoric of freedom, you understand that, right? But they're actually talking about, all these things to universalize things and so on and so forth. The idea of universalism is just another way for the dictators to attain complete power over the people, but they call it freedom. Okay, so what we have here is we have these people who have no fear of God. And the Pasuk says, Lo yadeu et Adonai. They had no knowledge of God anymore, meaning they were so far away from where they started. And I want to stop here for a moment.
Where was the father bringing them up?
That is such a good question.
I didn't hear it.
He asked, where was the father? I don't have an answer to that question. Because Ali himself was a Sadiq. He cared. He wasn't like the sons. But I guess what this teaches you is sometimes the love of a father to a son is such that the father is not aware or doesn't want to acknowledge his son's wrongdoing. And then what happens when he doesn't want to acknowledge the wrongdoing of his son, he ends up, losing the game, like Ali. I mean, everything gets destroyed. So apparently he had trouble acknowledging it. And towards the end of the story, we're going to see that he tries to speak them, but it's too late at that point. It's just too late. So what happened to the sons of Eli? So let me explain to you what happened to the sons of Eli. How do people who are the sons of Eli, and Eli was a Sadiq, how did they become what they become? And let me read to you a little about what they did, and then we'll analyze it. The Pasuk says, Umishpat hakohanim et ha'am. The Kohanim, they decided to impose certain rules upon the people. These rules that they imposed upon the people, they are not rules that come from the Torah, they don't come from the Halakha. They were made up by the Kohanim, and they were made for the benefit of the Kohanim. And the rules were as follows. For example, Kol ish zoveach zevach. As you know, people wanted to bring korbanot. A person made an avon, he wants to bring a korban chatat, he wants to bring a korban asham, he wants to bring korbanot in Mishkan Shiloh. But what's the problem? When you bring a korban, who's there? The Kohanim. Who brings the korban? The Kohanim. Who's in charge of the Kohanim? So people would come to bring their korban. Uba nar hakohen. And they would send the children of Eli would send like a young apprentice, because it was beneath their dignity to have to do it themselves. Kevashel basar. Now here's what happens. A person brings a korban, and certain types of korbanot, everything goes up on the mizbeach. That's called the korban olah. But then there's other types of korbanot where the person bringing the korban eats part of the korban. Part of the korban goes up on the mizbeach, and another part of the korban is given to the kohanim. That korban is called korban shelamim. Again, korban shelamim, which was a very common korban. When people brought korbanot, generally it was a korban shelamim. You would eat part, you would give part to the kohen, and then another part would go on the mizbeach. Now what would happen? As you're bringing the korban on the mizbeach, you would then take some of the meat that you're supposed to eat, and you would cook it. And what would you give the Kohanim? You would give the Kohanim the hazeh, the side of the side of the animal where the ribs are. You would give him the shok. The shok is the one of the back legs. Sometimes you would give him the zeroah, one of the front legs, depending on the type of the korban. But the Kohanim got a big piece of meat. Now, what would they do? They made this rule that while you're cooking your meat, one of these young apprentices will come with a pitchfork. I'm not making this up, right? This pitchfork has three prongs, big three-pronged fork. And the guy would come and stick his fork inside what the people were cooking. I mean, it's really disgusting behavior. I mean, it's simply reprehensible. Beneath any, this is derech eres. This is the way you act. Like it's like a Tahana Merkazit in Tel Aviv in the 70s. I mean, like no line or nothing, just go. This is terrible. But whatever, it's embarrassing to read this, but it is what it says. What it says. V'hikaba kiyor. And then he would stick his pitchfork inside the cauldron, or badu, the giant pot, or bakalahat, different things to cook in, or baparu. Kol asher ya'aleh hamazleg. Now the deal was as follows. The rule was, whatever I can get with the first slam of the pitchfork into the food belongs to the Kohen. Right. Yikach HaKohen bo. This was a self-made rule, right? It was for the benefit of the Kohanim, right? And they would abuse the people. The people are there. It's a holy place. They want to experience holiness, and instead of experiencing holiness, they experience this terrible, a lack of derech eres, simply savage behavior. Yikach HaKohen bo. This is what the Kohen would take. Kacha ya'asu lechol Yisrael haba'im sham b'Shilo. And this was done to all the Jewish people. Anybody who came to Shiloh, you bring a korban, you have to pay a special tax to the Kohanim. What's the tax you pay to the Kohanim? The tax you pay to the Kohanim is he sticks his giant pitchfork in, he sends a young guy with a giant pitchfork, whatever the thing takes. That's in addition to what they were getting. They were already getting a big part of the korban, right? The Kohen gets something. No, not enough. You understand? So that's that. So.
And they sent an apprentice, so they don't have to do it themselves.
They don't have to do this because it's beneath their dignity, exactly. So let the apprentice do it.
That's in Faresh? You read Faresh?
Oh no, he would say, look. Here, listen to the Lashon. Kol ish zoveach zevach. Anybody who would bring a korban, uba na'ar kohen. What is na'ar kohen? The apprentice, right? Kevashel basar, as the meat was cooking. Right, yeah. V'hamazleg shelo shashinam yado. And with this pitchfork, which had the three prongs, V'hika literally mean he would slam it down. Why would he slam? Because he wants to get as much meat as possible, right? V'hika bakiyor or badud or bakalachat or baparut, different types of pots, different sizes of pots. Kol asher ya'aleh hamazleg, whatever he would bring in the pitchfork, yikach hakohen bo, that belonged to the kohen, right? Kacha ya'asu lechol Yisrael. This is what they did to all the Jewish people at Ba'im Sham Shiloh. So this was the behavior. So rather than leaving Shiloh with an inspiring feeling, they left Shiloh with a very depressed feeling, and nobody wanted to be in that place, because who the heck wants to be in a place where you're looking for religion, and instead of religion you have these savages running the show. By the way, this isn't even the end of the story. It gets worse. And it not only gets worse, it gets much worse. Okay? So before saying how it got worse, and we'll read that today, I want to explain what happened to these guys, what happened to these young people. And it's something that's common in society, and it's a great lesson. It's a great lesson to learn for all of us. Okay? So there was this mythological figure called King Midas, right? So King Midas was this king who was filled with arrogance, and he was incredibly successful, and he was so successful that everything he touched turned to gold. And that was like a great cause for his tremendous self-confidence and arrogance. Everything he touches turns to gold. But there was a problem with that, because he would want to eat. And if everything you touch turns to gold, then you can't eat food. Right. And then he wanted to smell these beautiful flowers in his garden, and he picked a flower, but a gold flower doesn't have a beautiful smell to it. So the beauty of the food was gone, the beauty of the smells was gone, and he wanted to love. But you can't love a statue. And what happens is that when you become so arrogant and so filled with your success that everything you touch turns to gold, you chase away the beauty of life. And you not only chase away the beauty of life, but like the children of Eli, you chase away God, right? Because with the beauty of life comes knowledge of God. And in the psychological literature, there are so many stories of successful movie actors or successful corporate executives who get promoted, who become very successful, and then their behavior begins to change. The people around them notice the change in the behavior, right? And what's happening is, oftentimes when a person gets a position that he never thought he would get, or success that he never thought he would achieve, what happens is, well, there's two choices. So when Hashem comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to be the king. I want you to be the king of the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu is absolutely sure that he is not worthy for that position. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu tell Hashem? He tells Hashem, no, I'm not worthy. Find somebody else. I cannot do this. It's not my place to be the leader of the Jewish people. But Hashem insists and insists and insists, and finally Moshe Rabbeinu goes, because Hashem is like telling him, you better go. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu says, yeah, okay, I'll go. But what does the Pasuk say about Moshe Rabbeinu? V'ha'ish Moshe anav me'od. Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble person. He felt that he was not worthy. And even though he got this promotion, he was just, he was the most humble person among the Jews. He was the most humble person in the world. So that's one approach. One approach is hold on to your humility. You don't feel like you're worthy, hold on to that feeling and live with the uncertainty that comes with the knowledge that you're not worthy of the task at hand. So you just got promoted and you can't handle it? Okay, accept that humble feeling. That's one way to deal with that feeling. Another way to deal with the feeling of insecurity is to create this fantasy that you're really great. And then you suppress the feeling of insecurity, and then you start manipulating people around you and being arrogant to people around you. This is the more common road taken by successful people. And that is a very dangerous road, because the minute something goes wrong, it punctures that inflated ego. And then they go into this deep depression, and then they go into drugs. They go to alcohol, they fight with the people around them, and they end up in rehab centers. That's why so many successful people, you say, why is this guy an alcoholic? He's a successful movie star, he has millions of dollars. He can do anything he wants. How did he get to that place? How can that movie actor become addicted to drugs and then he died? I mean, how many people do we hear about and read about who did drugs? Why? Why would that happen? Because if you allow your ego to create this false self-confidence and false arrogance, the minute something punctures that arrogance, you just go to the other extreme. And what happened, you become depressed, and then you need drugs, and then you need to fill up the depression with other things. And here's what happened with the children of Eli. What did I say at the beginning of the class? Originally, who was the Kohen? People walked in late. Originally, Elazar, the children of Elazar were the Kohanim Gedolim. Pinchas was the Kohen. But as I said, there was a certain failure there. The failure was that the Jewish people were at a very low spiritual state. They had that horrible incident with Pilegesh Bagiv'ah. There was a civil war. They practically wiped out Shevet Binyamin. Comes Hashem, he tells Pinchas, step aside. I want to take away the children of Elazar, and I'm going to bring the other children, the other child of Aharon, Itamar. I'm going to bring his children as the Kohanim. He brings in Eli. Now at that point, there should have been this feeling of humility that Moshe Rabbeinu had. The feeling is, we're not worthy for this. We can't do this, but we'll do it because Hashem told us to do it. We'll try to do our best. That's one approach. The other approach is the approach of Hollywood. Become arrogant, become obnoxious to the people around you, manipulate the people around you, because by doing that, you get to hide the feeling of inadequacy within you, right? That's how you hide your own inadequacy, by creating that arrogant bubble and shield around you. That's what happened to the children of Eli. They literally went crazy to the point where the Pasuk says they forgot about God. And they forgot about God because they were now God. And that's where they were behaving with the people around them. So that's what I want to tell you now. And now I'm going to tell you that they did something worse than sticking the pitchfork and taking everybody. Literally, that's geza, but that's robbing. Let's say what else they did. And by the way, I really like this because, say, well, they're in charge. They made the rule. The government made the rule. So the government made the rule that they can go and take all the meat they want to take. And I just love this. Not every rule that the government makes, we have, it's the rule. Meaning there are things that the government can do that are wrong. Even the Kohanim can do things that are wrong. You get it? Even the Kohanim, even a Kohen can do things that are wrong. So in other words, we're very blessed that we have a Torah, and the Torah is like light, and it allows us to distinguish right from wrong. This is just wrong. I don't care that the people who made the rules are the Kohanim, and the population, the Jews, are beginning to understand this. But I said there's something worse, so let's get to the worst thing. Gam beterim yaktirun et ha'chelev uva nar hakohen. Now before they would put there was a part of the fat of the animal that's called chelev that they would burn on the altar. This chelev cannot be eaten by anybody. It can't be eaten by the kohen. It can't be eaten by the people. It's burned on the mizbeach. Okay, that's called the chelev. Before they would burn the chelev, uva nar hakohen. This apprentice, this young obnoxious apprentice, who was being egged on by his boss, which is the kohen, he would come. He would come to the person who's involved in bringing his sacrifice. It's not like the previous case where he was cooking the food, he wanted to have a meal with his family, they come, they take half the meat for themselves. No. This is a situation where the guy now is involved in bringing the korban on the mizbeach. He's bringing the sacrifice upon the altar, right? They didn't even start the main ritual, was putting the chalev on the altar. And this guy would come, the young apprentice would come and tell him, give me some meat, give me some meat. We don't want you to cook the meat. Don't cook the meat. Last time you were here, you didn't cook the meat well. Give us some raw meat. That's what they would say. The young apprentice said, give us some raw meat. We want raw meat. Okay, let me explain to you why this was so terrible. Because there is a rule that when you bring a korban, and this is explicit in the Torah, meaning it's not like a humrah. Okay, it's actually explicit in the Torah. The pasuk in the Torah says, "V'yiktira kohen et ha'chelev ha'mizbecha," and then it says that you would first burn the chelev on the altar. Then the kohanim come and they get their meat. Okay, so what's the order here? How does it work? You respect the korban, you respect the mizbeach. So first you put the food, the chelev, on the mizbeach. You burn the chelev. That is the ritual worship of Hashem through the korbanot, and then the Kohanim come and they eat their food. Who gets the food first? The Mizbeach or the Kohen? Hashem, obviously. It's explicit in the Torah. Now, if the Kohen comes and he takes the food before they burnt the chelev, that invalidates the Korban. That invalidates the Korban, and it's forbidden to even eat that food. That food is non-kosher because you invalidated the Korban. But what would these guys do? They would be so aggressive and obnoxious in their way that they violated their own rules. They would take the meat before the chalev was sacrificed, right? Before the chalev was burnt on the altar, and in that way they would destroy the whole korban. And the guy's like, I just spent so much money on this korban. So let me bring my korban. Let me bring my korban. And here's what they would say. So now the person bringing the korban, he's horrified. He says, he says, wait a few minutes. We're bringing the chalev today. Take everything. Take the whole meat. Take the whole korban. I don't care, but let me at least I'm bringing a korban because I made an avon, because I want to bring a korban to Hashem. But you're ruining the korban. You're ruining the sacrifice for me. I'll give you the whole thing. Let me just do it properly. That's what they're telling the kohen, right? Ve'amar, no. Ki ata titen. I want the food now. Ve'im lo lakachti be'oskav. If you don't give me the food, we're going to take it by force. So we have bodyguards, we have this, whatever. We're going to take the food by force. I mean, these are terrible people. They're making a farce out of religion, right? They're making a farce out of religion. They're making a farce out of Judaism. So this is the problem. This is the problem, and that the Jewish people were experiencing back then. Phony religious leaders that they care about themselves. They don't care about the people. You understand? This is the problem of the phony religious people in those days. They have a way of manipulating the people, getting money from the people, taking things from the people, going against religion, that at the end of the day, as long as I'm satisfied, it doesn't matter. So violate the Torah, but give me what I want, says the rabbi, says the Kohen, says the priest in the Mishkan of Shiloh. This is a terrible situation that was taking place back then. Understood? Over there, Mihila.
Who was the shochet? Who would check the animal?
I'm sorry?
Who was the shochet?
So the Kohen himself would do the shahita.
Right.
The Kohen would do the shahita. And while they were, so one Kohen is doing the shahita, another Kohen is, thank you very much. Another Kohen is going to do the haktarat halal. Then the apprentice now is coming and saying, I want the meat now. And they say, well, you just put the halal on the mizbeach and then take your meat. No, we want it now. Yeah, it was a very brutal, very aggressive, condescending attitude. Yeah. So they're working on the sacrifice themselves. They control everything. No, I want the meat now. But why violate halakha? You can eat the meat when it's kosher. Why are you eating it when it's not kosher? Why are you invalidating my korban? So the whole thing became a farce, and it was clearly so.
So that's
How long was
within.
this going on?
I'm sorry?
How long was this going on?
It was going on for many years. It was going on for many years. And Ali was already an old man at this point. We don't know what the age of his children were at this point, but Ali was already old at this point, and now the children are taking over, and they were making a mockery of the whole thing. So, and the people understood it. So it was coming, and we just said something very terrible, and it gets even worse than this.
And that's
It gets
within
even
200
worse.
Years?
What?
That's within 200 years of Yitzhak Mitzrayim.
Yeah, a little after. Yeah, a little after.
300.
Yeah, exactly, a little
Still
after.
fresh.
But it's right. Okay.
Unfortunately, isn't there a lot more korbanot than there are kohanim? In other words, wouldn't there be
Yes.
so much
Plenty
meat,
of food.
more than they can even eat?
But the
Usually,
point is,
Kohanim have a lot of meat. If you want
it's
meat,
not
you go
about
to
how
Kohen.
they did it. It's
Oh, but
about,
you can't even freeze it. I like the.
it's about being,
What would they do with all the meat?
it's about being defined to Hashem. It's not about how they did it. It's all about being defined to Hashem.
Maybe they sold it. I don't know. The
Can't
bottom
just-
line is there were a bunch. Maybe they would. I don't know. Who knows what they did with the meat? Did they eat it all? Did they sell it later on?
And they profit from it?
Maybe they. Well, I mean, no, but I mean, you're dealing here with the bunch. Yeah, you're dealing here with. I mean, listen, not to compare. I'll tell you what. I like listening to when I drive it. So I'm always listening to like Torah classes. So if I'm running, if I'm jogging, whatever I'm doing, I always listening to Torah classes. So in Israel they have a very nice radio station, religious radio station. They have great classes, but sometimes they have these advertisements. So they have an advertisement, for the Ilan Hakadosh, the holy tree. So they always have this advertisement. So if you buy the holy tree, it's all your problems will dissipate. If you're looking for somebody to marry, you'll find somebody to marry. You have somebody sick in the family, they'll get cured. You want to make money, you'll make money, and so on and so on and so on. And they have like these infomercials that literally go on for hours and hours and hours. And I get really upset because like I want to hear some Torah and instead I'm hearing this, so I just switch stations and figure out what to listen to. But I'm listening to the station, and every few minutes I'm switching back to hear whether. I want to hear it. I want to get to a class. I say maybe the infomercial is over. So something like pay $40, $50 a month for 36 months, and you'll get the Ilana Kadosh. So this holy tree. I'm not saying holy tree, but anyway. So every half hour, I'm like, okay, are they done? So we have only 5 more left. You have to call up now, please. If you don't call up now, you're not going to get it. So what's going on there? An hour later. Okay, we just found out. We just got 5 more. We only have 5 more left now. This is going on the whole day. They have this long infomercial. It's really annoying. I just want to hear a class. But anyway, I finally said, let me call up. I'm intrigued. What is this holy tree? Is it a Christmas tree? What is it? It's a holy tree. What's holy? Because I know in the Torah actually mentions holy trees. It mentions the holy trees that the pagans used to worship. It was Avodah Zarah, and it says you're supposed to burn every Asherah when you come into the land of Israel. So I just want to hear what it was. So I called up this nice lady. She answers, yeah. I said, what is this Ilana Kadosh? I wasn't mean to her. I don't like being mean. It's not her fault. She's just an employee, whatever. So I said, is it like a real tree? What am I going to be getting? It's not a tree. It's like a kamiyah, it's a piece of leather where they write something on the piece. I said, so why do they call it Ilana Kadosh? She says, no, because it's. I said, okay, and so she explained to me the price and this, and I hung up, and I understood what it was. So maybe we shouldn't compare, but religious leaders have have a obligation not to use the goodwill and the religious sentiments of people to abuse that goodwill and to use it to make money for themselves. That's what I'm saying. Meaning, it's wrong to take people who believe and people who want to do good, people who want to get closer to God, and say, just give me the money, right? And you'll be closer to God. Everything will be solved, right? There are ways to make you closer to God, of course, right? There's a lot of things to do to be closer to God, right? But you can't manipulate that for your own benefit. Give me the money, show me the money, right? That's what's wrong with all these schemes and infomercials. And then from the Ilana Kadosh, they went to the Holy Knife, and then from the Holy Knife, they went to the Holy, it's actually the Holy Grail. I mean, they called it Hagavia Kadosh, the Kiddush cup, that's a Holy Grail. I mean, I was fascinated. These people know nothing about the world around them. You're selling a holy tree, and then you sell the Holy Grail. In Christianity, the Holy Grail, but okay, whatever. They're just ignoramuses, so they don't know what they're doing. So put that on the side. But what bothers me is not their ignorance. It's taking the innocent religious sentiments of simple Jews and abusing those sentiments to make money. That's what upsets me. That's just wrong. And that's what we see from the children, and Hashem hates that. Hashem really despises that. That's what we learn from the story. We learn from the story that a religious leader is not supposed to abuse the flock. He's not supposed to manipulate them for his own benefit. That's just wrong. You understand? And that's a really important lesson. But as I said, the story gets worse. It actually gets worse. Let's continue. And in the eyes of God, this was just such a terrible, terrible avon. And Hashem is looking at this. These people were literally desecrating the sacrifice of God. God has these things that are holy. The Mizbeach is kadosh. The Mishkan is kadosh. The korbanot, the sacrifices are kadosh. And they're just like, they're despising and desecrating all these holy things. So Hashem had a plan for these people. We're going to see what that plan is in a moment. But first, let's finish this section in the story. Shemuel, together with this darkness, there was a young child called Shemuel, Mesharet et Penei Adonai. Shemuel was serving Hashem. Shemuel was quiet. He was like a beautiful, beautiful flower in a place of just ugly weeds. And this beautiful flower, nobody noticed him. Na'ar Hagur Ephod Bad. And this child had a beautiful linen belt around him, and he was doing Hashem's will. Ume'il katon, and I'm going to speak about that in a moment. Ume'il katon ta'aselo imo, and his mom made for him a beautiful suit. Ve'ha'alta lo miyamim yamima ba'alotaha et ishaha lizboh hazivach hayamim. And she would always bring him presents every time she would come with her husband to Shiloh. She would bring him these special gifts, and this child was growing. And there's a saying of the Chachamim, En beracha shiruya ela bedavar hasamui meha'ayin. You want there to be beracha in your life? Hide. You just have to hide some of the good things. If you hide something and you keep it, a little more humble about the things you have, Hashem brings beracha in what you have. Right? And if there's too much flaunting and too much, look at me and look what I did and look at this, Bar Minan, we have to be very careful. The beracha goes away. So what's happening here? What's happening here is there's so much evil happening in this Mishkan that nobody notices this little boy. Nobody notices this little boy. He's just a little boy there. They don't know who he is. And because of that, he's hidden away. And he can grow and he become the most important Navi, one of the most important Naviim ever. That's Shemuel HaNavi, right? So he becomes one of the greatest Naviim precisely because he was in a situation where it was hidden, where you couldn't see him, you didn't understand what's happening, all you see is evil. But inside the belly of the beast there's this beautiful flower growing, and he's going to come and he's going to save the Jewish people. I want to end with the following thought. First of all, if anybody has a question, that would be a good time. Otherwise, I'm going to go to my next...
I have a list of questions.
a list, okay. You want to ask one or two?
Yeah. Let me see, I've got good ones. I have it on notes. I made notes.
Oh, you took notes? Okay, so I can't...
So you think I'm on the phone. First of all, the thing about the holy tree is just to show you that the world of business is always going to be the same story. There's always going to be
Right. So let me address that statement. I agree with you, but religious leaders shouldn't sell religious. Right? No, I know you didn't mean that. But I always say this: religious leaders should not abuse. Right. So like, if I can, like, you're an artist, right? So I can try to like manipulate your love of art and say, Stephen, buy this beautiful coat. That's okay because that's, I'm not abusing you. But if I'm a rabbi and you love Torah and I'm going to sketch you up, oh, give me this and give me that, that Hashem doesn't allow that. Don't turn the Torah into your commercial wear.
Hashem allows us like a bunch of rats in a rat race to kind of.
But that's
have
business.
them- No, but have them and to have us hone our senses to stay away from them. I guess everything's like a little, that's not on purpose.
Right.
But it's
Of course, and by the way, just because you're in business doesn't mean you can do anything you want to do either. You also have to be you have to have integrity in business, of course, absolutely. So even in business you have to have integrity, absolutely. But certainly if you're a religious leader, do not sell religion, right? You teach Torah for free, you help people because you love it, and it's just so important that you not try to manipulate people and use their crisis or use their weakness, religious sentiments to make money.
Was it promoted by religious leaders, those trees?
Yeah.
It was actual people that we respect and.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. No.
They're
There was
accepting that,
in one case it was in one case it was promoted by a religious leader who was such a great Kabbalist. They couldn't mention his name because he was so great, and they said that if you only heard his name, you wouldn't believe who this Kabbalist is. But he's so humble that we can't mention. Okay, whatever. We got the sketch. We totally got the sketch. Okay, totally got the sketch. Right. So I mean, I didn't hear any chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom. Not that the great rabbis would not do this, of course. God forbid. God forbid. No. It was whatever. It was sketch. Last question, then we'll yes.
Rabbi, without mentioning names, they do it because they convince themselves that their cause is so important.
Yes.
That they're building for Hashem something so important that they're blinded themselves, let alone they hypnotize people to come into that.
Absolutely correct. They fool themselves. They're the first victims. The first victims of their own folly is themselves. I agree with that. Let me say something very symbolic. You remember the story of Korach? Now Korach gets angry, and he tells Aharon, why are you the Kohen? Remember that story? And he says, I should be. Why do you get to be the Kohen? I want to be the Kohen. Right? And he starts a revolution against Moshe Rabbeinu. Now Korach himself was a cousin of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was a tzaddik. He just, he let the craziness, hasin'ah v'hata'ava v'hakavod musi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam. When a person is jealous, and when a person has desire, when a person wants kavod, when a person wants honor, it can make a person go crazy. The person can go crazy. So it's so important, not to get sucked in by those sentiments. But Korach got sucked in by those sentiments. So even though he was a great Hakam and a great Tzaddik, he started a fight against Moshe Rabbeinu. What a foolish thing to do.
Very rich.
So you say, how can Korach have made this mistake? So I'll tell you something. And again, you can accept it. I don't think people like Korach just make mistakes. I really don't. I don't think the people who have that kedusha and that holiness can just make mistakes like that. Now, here's the thing. Korach's great-grandson, I didn't count how many grades I had there, was who? Was actually Shemuel. Shemuel was from the children of Korach, from the descendants of Korach. And Korach's, Shemuel's great-grandchildren, they were in the Bet HaMikdash singing songs of the Leviim on the Mizbeach. It was a great zechut. So why did Korach go crazy? So he went crazy because he saw his he saw in a prophetic vision, he had the Ruach HaKodesh, and he saw that his descendants will be on the Mizbeach, a whole row of Levim, all of them his descendants, who were the descendants of Shemuel. So it's Korach, down, you get to Shemuel, down, that's so far, you get to the great-grandchildren of Shemuel HaNavi, they're all in the Bet HaMikdash singing songs on the Mizbeach. So he saw all of this. And he said, why is Aharon a Kohen? Now here's the thing. Who was the descendants of Aharon? Eli. Now, Eli certainly did not represent Aharon, or at least the children. Let me rephrase that. I take that back. The children of Eli did not represent Aharon. So who did Korach see if he's going down, and he sees his great-grandchildren on the Mizbeach? What does he see in his prophetic mind? He sees the great-grandchildren of Aharon, namely Hofni and Pinchas, the children of Eli, desecrating the Mishkan. And he says, why is he going to be the Kohen? Look at his descendants. Look at Hophni and Pinchas. Look what they're doing. They're desecrating everything that's holy. They're destroying everything. It's an instinct. It's an intuition, right? And he goes against Aharon. And his intuition tells him, his prophecy tells him, and my children are these Saddiqim, singing songs beautifying the Bet HaMikdash. My children are singing songs of holiness in the Bet HaMikdash, and his children are going to be desecrating the thing and taking meat away from people like a bunch of savages, right? So you see how it all works out of that. Everything comes full circle. Korach was wrong. Of course he was wrong. You don't argue with Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't argue with Aaron. And Aaron was the greatest Saddiq. And almost all of Aaron's descendants were Saddiqim. But there was a kernel of truth. It was an intuition. He sensed something. He shouldn't have gone with that intuition, right? But he sensed it. Korach goes against Aaron. I want to be the Kohen. And here it's kind of like, yeah, Korach, he had a correct instinct. His instinct was right. His behavior was wrong. It was his behavior that was wrong. But he had the right idea. That's Korach. I just wanted to say that. Next week we're going to continue, see what happens. I said that there was something worse that the children of Eli did. My gosh. Really disgusting behavior. Just reprehensible. We're going to see this all ends. Hashem doesn't tolerate nonsense. It all gets destroyed. It's all going to get destroyed, and you're going to see what happens with these in the continuation of the story.